The original narcissist is Shaitan. He started his narcissism by refusing to bow down and prostrate to Adam alayhi salam when Allah created him from clay, citing that he was made from smokeless fire and therefore he was superior. A cavalier attitude towards Adam allowed him to then embody traits like envy and hatred and disdain for mankind, and upon which he then embarked on his lifelong mission, which is eternity, to mislead mankind from the path of Allah and from worship of God to worship of Him. Are narcissists possessed by demons? Many testimonies and reports have emerged that people who are undergoing narcissistic abuse have witnessed the black eyes of the narcissist or the narcissist shape-shifting when confronted, or when their demon has been activated in a sense, or when it seems like they've been possessed by another entity due to their narcissistic rage, or during their narcissistic rage, and any other events that provoke this kind of personality to emerge. Even unprovoked, as we know, the narcissist is very dysfunctional and dysregulated. So this ugly head may rear at the most unexpected of times. Report or phenomena has been observed by many abuse survivors, and today I'm going to unpack it as to whether or not this actually is a phenomena that is true, i.e. demonic possession. Now, modern day psychology does not give us enough, because psychology in the Western world hits a cap, hits a ceiling, hits a limit, due to modern day psychology not appreciating or understanding the unseen, the realms of God, the angels and demons and jinn. What we have to understand is that modern psychology cannot have the bandwidth to expand beyond the seen and visual material world and realm due to its propensity to not believe in God. If the modern medical theory has to admit or include demonic possession as part of the maladies that face maladaptive NPDs or any other psychosis, then they will have to admit that there is a God. Now, of course, they want to bypass this completely, because the repercussions and implications of it means they will have to believe in God. And then they're going to have to believe in the Holy Scripture, the Quran, and they're going to have to use it to fight their demons, basically, because modern psychology, medicine, all the pharmaceuticals cannot treat an ephemeral spiritual problem. Pills and physical therapies, clinical medical solutions are material. However, the spirit is not of a material nature. Therefore, you can only fight the battle on a spiritual front using spiritual therapies and spiritual solutions for a spiritual problem. What I attempt to do is to marry the two worlds. So using the DSM-5 for what it is worth, using modern day breakthroughs and updates and progression in the field of psychology, whereas also including in it Islamic traditions, Islamic principles, and Islamic therapies, in that you can use ruqya or Quranic recitation, which has been prophetically suggested as a therapy to heal wounds that are inflicted by spirits from the other realms. The narcissistic demon is entitled to absolutely everything from everybody at all times. Try drawing a boundary and you'll see what I mean. They will not take no for an answer. They will push and push and push until all your boundaries are broken and until you give them exactly what they demand. They come to us with raging narcissistic anger, intend to cause immense fright within you so that you cower under them and give them what they need. And Allah says in the Quran, وَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِي. Do not fear them, but fear me. And that is because although the narcissist appears to have all of this might, ferocity, and power, deep down he is weak, very fragile, very thin-skinned, extremely insecure, and incapable of upholding his life by himself, which is why he depends on you for his emotional regulation while causing you extreme emotional dysregulation. So once we know that the devil wants to be worshipped instead of God, and that he has certain qualities, what are they that are embodied in the narcissist? The first quality, which I've mentioned, is envy. He has a deep envy and jealousy for Adam and his offspring, which is us. Humankind has qualities that Shaitan does not have. Even though Shaitan is made from smokeless fire, he deems himself superior and that humankind are inferior, and he has sworn to mislead us. So he's incredibly envious of us, that Allah has created us and bestowed upon us all of the faculties and qualities that we as human beings have, and the ability to work towards heaven and seek forgiveness and repentance from hell. He envies us to the nth degree, and because of this envy, he wants to mislead us to hellfire. The narcissistic personality disorder is an incredibly stubborn disorder. They are very firm in their stubbornness and rebellious nature. The most proud, arrogant, boastful of leaders of the narcissistic personality disorder, or demons that possess the narcissist, because he wants the narcissist to believe that he is superior than others and that everyone and everything exists to serve him, i.e. the narcissist. Unless you are worshipping the narcissist, then you're not doing your job. And this can be understood by anyone suffering with narcissistic abuse. They will tell you firsthand that, unless I am doing the bidding of the narcissist, he does not like me. And even after you shower the narcissist with the adulation, adoration, admiration, respect, and glorification, even exaltation, that is borderline worship, he still will not be happy, and that is because nothing you do will ever be enough. He is an insatiable creature, and he does not leave anything until he has sucked the life out of it. In so doing, he will usurp your heart, mind, body, spirit, soul, and will leave you absolutely empty. And not only that, he will move on to other supply while with you, because even if you're giving him everything he needs, it's simply never going to be enough. And he will always seek it from other sources because he does not believe that he is worthy. So aside from having this incredibly arrogant and haughty attitude, deep down he believes that he is this pitiful, cowardly, golem-like creature who is worthless, not worthy of love, not worthy of anything, and is completely ravished by his own insatiable attitude and appetite for love, vanity, adoration, exaltation, lust. Like Shaitan wishes to confuse mankind. As you see, it's increasingly nowadays, people don't know if they're men or women, if they're girls or boys, if they're human beings, or if they're pandas, or whatever they want to identify with. Shaitan wants to confuse mankind, because when you're in a state of confusion, you don't know where is up or down, you don't know which is left or right, you don't know right from wrong anymore. This drunken stupor of confusion is what he wants to have you embroiled in, so that he can use you for his benefit and control you and mind control you and get you to submit in obedience to whatever he says. Once you are under his spell, you are very malleable, you are very porous, your boundaries have melted away. Therefore, he can ride roughshod all over you and strip you of your identity, your dignity, your personal honor, self-esteem, confidence, and your sovereignty. He wants to strip you of this so that he can make you a puppet of his own design to do his bidding. He can only do this in a distorted reality of his own making, and if you understand the psychological model for this, it's called the dual mothership model, and the simulator that you step into when you enter into this fantastical fantasy version of his reality, which is not the real world. He seeks for you to live in this alternate reality where he is God, so that you are the obedient, submissive slave, working so hard for his validation, for his approval, for his affection, for his breadcrumbs of whatever it is. Of course, getting more and more demonic and devious as time goes along, because he will start to then drip feed this to you, making you even more hungry and more addicted. He will condemn you to complete hopelessness and helplessness by blame shifting everything on you. And then you, as the honest, empathic individual who feels compassion and feels emotions and is a normal human being, he will dysregulate you so that you take responsibility for everything going wrong in the relationship, and he can get away scot-free, making you believe that you are the one responsible, you are the cause of all evil, you are the one doing everything wrong and bad, when it's also a projection onto you of what he's actually doing. Other ways that he will confuse you to oblivion is by deception, lying, word salad, meant to utterly leave you feeling crazy and like you question yourself, you question your reality, you start doubting yourself, you doubt that your sensory perceptors even work accurately, you doubt how you feel, you doubt how you think, and you become solely dependent on him for your sense of perception and reality. They will instill fear in you because fear is the way that they get you to submit. They instill fear in many ways. Fear with their narcissistic rage, so that you are terribly afraid of their violence and their violent outbursts. They also will make you afraid because they will use all of your vulnerable information that you've given to them, which they've stored in their data hard drive, their data collectors of note. They will use all of that as ammunition against you. So you have to understand that every single thing that you shared vulnerably to build a relationship, to foster and nurture this bond between you two, is something that was completely one-sided. Yes, he may have shared certain things with you as well, but that's because he's happy playing the victim card, especially if he's a covert narcissist. They will also make you afraid that they will leave you. Yes, they will make you terribly afraid of discarding you, so that your world will come crumbling down and everything that you've put into this relationship. And if you are a victim of narcissistic abuse, you definitely have poured your heart, mind, body, soul, every single ounce of your being into this relationship, because that is what a relationship with an NPD will do to you. It will make you a codependent mess, even though previously you may have been secure attachment, healthy individuality, you have your own identity, you have healthy boundaries, all of these things you may have had before the relationship. After a season with the NPD, you will be left completely out of character, not knowing who you are anymore, acting completely opposite to how you normally behave. This will screw up your internal wiring, make you completely look like you don't even know who you are anymore when you look in the mirror. You feel like you're a stranger to yourself. You feel out of body, you feel numb. You honestly feel like you can't even cognitively string two sentences that make sense together. People will come and ask you how you are and you won't even know how to answer. This is all the manipulation and psychosis that they put you through in order to extract your value from you. This leads all sufferers of narcissistic abuse left with CPTSD. Please check out my video on that for more information. Now, if we look at, for example, who is our arch enemy, which is Shaitan, we have to also look at the fact that we don't really know who Shaitan is and what are his attributes, his qualities, his characteristics, and his traits, to understand what of these traits are actually embodied in the narcissist, someone really suffering from NPD, which is again hard to diagnose because many of the narcissistic personality disorder sufferers do not admit that there's anything wrong with them, nor will they seek therapy. And if they do seek therapy, they will lie their way through therapy so that the therapist cannot truly identify whether they are an NPD sufferer. So it is an undiagnosable ailment, and this making it very hard to treat, very hard for the person who is an NPD sufferer to actually seek help and become better, or seek any help to become on any level self-aware. So if we were to study the 99 names of Allah, we understand who our Creator is, who God is, what are His names and attributes, and what powers does He have over us, what does He have of His characteristics which we can seek help for in Him. If we were to look at Shaitan, however, he also has characteristics and attributes. I'm going to mention some of them that are embodied in the narcissist himself. The goal is to keep you exhausted on this emotional roller coaster where you are constantly being fought with, gaslit, manipulated, coerced, and psychologically abused into submission to them. In this way, they keep you clinging to them for that dopamine rush, which they once in a while will give you, where they do treat you with the love, affection, and adoration sometimes that you so deeply crave. But this will be intermittently reinforced with the abuse so that they forge a trauma bond to lock you into this addiction to them and therefore have you by the proverbial balls. They will then want to keep you ensnared so that they can further drive you crazy and get the emotional responses out of you that elicit glee and a gleam in their eye and extreme sordid happiness in them, that they have control over you. And this narcissistic glee and glint in their eye and this wicked smile is often found once they've driven you to the point of insanity and beyond, and you've lashed out, you're on the floor crying, you're in a mess, you're in a heap, you're sobbing uncontrollably, or they've got you pushed over the cliffs of madness in an uncharacterized rage, which is not like you, and they've brought the worst out of you. This is when you will see them really happy and with, a gleam and happiness on their faces, as if they've achieved something great, which is what they've wanted, to drive you crazy. This is also another occurrence in which some of them may show their black eyes or shapeshift into whatever demonic figure that they want to. The narcissist does not have any regard for the law. It could be the law of the country, the law of the road, the law of Allah. They do not care because they are God. They are a 4-year-old in a body of a man, but they believe they are God. So therefore they are above every law. However, you will be held to the highest account of every law at all times. They will hold the microscope of the law over you to make sure that they extract maximum benefit out of you and uphold the highest moral code, but only for you to follow. It doesn't apply to them. So good luck trying to convince them that they need to follow the law, abide by the rules, and play nicely. It will not work. They have an incredibly rebellious and disobedient nature, in that they want to break every rule except when it comes to you. You will have to follow it, but no, not them. They follow their desires, and Allah says in the Quran, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. Have you seen the one who has taken his own desires as a god? There is no truer embodiment of this than the NPD, who has truly taken his desires as a god, because he only follows his lusts and his worldly cravings for more money, more women, more fame, more adulation, and of course, above all, worship. Narcissists are extremely spiteful and petty. I call them the king of petty. Like Shaitan, when given respite by Allah, because Allah, ousted him from heaven, he then said, by your might, فَبِعِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. By your might and by your honor. Shaitan swears by the honor and might of Allah and says, I will mislead them all, because you have cast me out of heaven and chosen Adam above me. I will swear by your might and honor to mislead all of them. إِلَّا عِبَادِكَ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, except your sincere and righteous slaves. So this is pettiness of him, where it's a tit for tat kind of game, and he's at war against Allah. Just the same as the narcissist is at war against Allah and all the rules and everything that governs this world. He will be at loggerheads with you and fight with you on a tit for tat basis over the pettiest of things, just like a 4-year-old. So expect this from them, and expect that they will not change, and they will not cower, and they will not humble themselves ever. They are the antithesis of humility. However, in the beginning, they will show extreme fake humility to lure you in and make themselves out to be the biggest virtuous, angelic embodiment of morals and virtue. Of course, this could not be further from the truth. The narcissist will appear in your life as a Trojan horse. The Trojan horse comes embellished in light and virtue and all things good. But inside and beneath that surface, you will find that they are this nasty demon seeking to suck out all of your goodness, your spirit, your soul, abuse you mentally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, so that you then give them all of yourself, so that they can suck the life dry out of you and leave you with nothing left. This is why they have no qualms in appearing, rearing their ugly heads, and demanding this worship from you that they so deeply crave. Narcissists operate from the nafs, which is the lower carnal self or base soul, the animalistic part of us. The ruh is the elevated soul, and the nafs is the cravings, the human desires, the carnal lusts. And that is where they operate from. Everything about them is instant gratification, feeding their nafs, feeding their bodies, feeding and nourishing all their satanic desires and functions. If we look at, for example, narcissists of old, we can see historically demonic tyrants in rulers such as Pharaoh and Nimrod. They might have been abused or neglected as children, or they might have been glorified to the point where they were spoilt so reverentially that they believe that they are gods to be worshipped besides Allah. Exactly what the narcissist wants of you, to be worshipped as a god. He will even make you suffer in your own iman, in your own faith with and relationship with Allah, so that you will be dragged under in hour-long arguments so that you miss Fajr. Throughout the night, you will have a horrible sleep because the narcissist will make sure that you do not have a good sleep. Please refer to my video on narcissists and sleep patterns and sleep dysfunction. You will see that they will leave you tired, exhausted, so that you are susceptible to mind control. Unsurprising, since if you do engage in this hour-long fight from 3 a.m. onwards, you will miss your Fajr Salah. You will be too tired to worship Allah. You will be so plasticized and moldable that they will be able to do anything that they want with you because you are exhausted, empty, and you have no boundaries to uphold, and the strength from your body has left. So this is what they want from you exactly, to be left as a hollowed out husk. Shaitan tempts the narcissists with things like hope, domination, control, attainment of all their worldly desires, strength and power over people. So this gives them the energy and the fuel to come after you and to distract you from your real life goals and from worshiping Allah and your real purpose on earth, and make them the center stage of your life so that you in turn worship them. It has been prophesied that towards the end of time we will have a lot of widespread lies, deceit, cunning from people. The worst people will emerge towards the end of time. And if you know anything about the sources of narcissism and the history of narcissism and how it comes and forms about in a young child, you will understand that since the Industrial Revolution, since the families have been fragmented and people have become more alone, isolated, individualized, self-serving, and self-centered, they seek to worship themselves, and narcissism is now widely celebrated by society, by our culture, and by humanity at large. You just need to look on social media, Netflix, movies, pop culture, songs to see what I mean. It is now becoming socially acceptable to be narcissistic, and this is why. Ask yourself, how is my iman with this narcissistic husband or wife of mine? Am I getting closer to Allah? Am I raising in iman? Am I doing more ibadah? Is my concentration in my worship better and stronger? Or is it weakening and losing its strength? And am I losing hope and faith in God as a whole? These are very important questions to ask yourself. This should be a good indication that you are undergoing narcissistic abuse. Remember, there cannot be two gods in one household. You are either worshipping Allah and letting your husband lead as the shepherd of the flock, and beneath the worship of Allah you are serving him, or you are sacrificing your worship to Allah and weakening in that and giving all of your submission, surrender, and worship and obedience to your husband. This should, of course, tell you the abusive nature of satanic control and how they wish to usurp the worship of Allah and bring it to themselves, making themselves absolutely in need, weak, and sometimes throwing the victim card that they need this from you in order to survive. And you, of course, being the good Muslim wife, wanting to serve your husband, wanting to save the marriage, wanting to keep the boat sailing smoothly, you will do anything to make this marriage work, and that often means sacrificing your deen. Now, there are hard questions where if there are psychologists or, raqis watching this video who are Islamic spiritual healers, first question is, now all we can go by is the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is a man-made book. It is only to the limit of the furthest update and upgrade of human discovery to this point. It does not have all the answers. Yes, it's a good and helpful guide, good list of criterion to go by and statistics and diagnostics to run when you're dealing with cluster B personality disorders. However, at the end of the day, there's a few questions that are very difficult that we need answers to. And the first question is, if it is a personality disorder acquired from childhood, not born with, it's a trauma, has developed as a weapon and a shield to defend the child and help them survive. How can they, A, know what they are doing because they know, and B, how can they switch it on and off? So that means they get to choose when they're being an asshole and when they're not. How is this possible if it is a mental disorder and they cannot help the way they behave? An insane person will not have any ability to switch it on and off. And is this switching on and off when they allow an entity to possess them? How does this work exactly? They switch between faking morality, putting up this facade to seduce people, behaving a certain way in the outside world in front of strangers and other people, and behaving another way behind closed doors with you. Now, of course, not everybody is, the same person outside as they are at home. However, the discrepancy between who the NPD is outside and at home is like completely two different people. The Jekyll and Hyde phenomena. So if it's a personality disorder, then how can they help switching it on and off? That is the question A. The question B is, does this then make them mentally ill? So if it's mentally ill, then shouldn't they be put in an institution like an asylum? Why would they then be called to account for their actions if they cannot help it? Why will they then be punished by incarceration, being thrown into jail or being arrested or being, going under the Civil Criminal Act law, whatever that is? Of course, in Saudi Arabia, it would be the Sharia law, where they would either have a limb chopped off, depending on if they stole, or if they hurt or raped, or their necks, their heads chopped off, whatever it is. What is the criminal law and consequence, the justice for a narcissist when they do exhibit widespread criminal behavior? Because they are criminals. They are people who do not follow the law, and they will bend the law to suit their needs, and they will bend everything in their reality to suit their needs, including you. And question C is, if they are insane Islamically and the pen has lifted. So we know that the pen has lifted from the person while they are sleeping, a child before they reach the age of tamyiz, which is cognitive faculty and reasoning or maturity, and the third person is an insane person. So if they are mentally ill, does this mean that the pen has lifted from the narcissist and that their deeds are no longer being recorded? Therefore, we cannot hold them to account for what they do, because as we mentioned in question A, they can switch this on and off. So they have control of it, and they know the damage they are doing, because they do it to some and not to others. They do it sometimes and not all the time. So these are lots of questions which modern psychology and the DSM-5 do not answer. And given the information that we have at our disposal through Islam and the Holy Scripture, the Quran and Hadith, and all of the evidence that we have of spiritual possession, can we then say that they are sometimes possessed, not always, or is it a constant possession that is then riled up into a fervor every time the demon acts out in them? And does this person have any agency over this demon and their demonic possession, or can it be cured? So, lots of very hard-hitting and big questions, and I'm hoping that, someone watching this will come forward with an answer. Anyway, I hope you all stay safe. May Allah protect all of you who are dealing with this, and heal all of you who have left this abusive relationship, and grant you sanctity, succor, and salvation, and safety from such personalities in future. Hopefully my channel will help identify all of the criterion that a narcissistic person with NPD actually meets, so that when you meet them, you know exactly to run the other way. Thank you so much for joining me. All the best. Assalamu alaikum and goodbye. One thing I can say from personal experience is that my ex had an unhealthy attachment or interest or curiosity in jinn possession and demons, is because he would always talk about it as something that, and use it as a weaponized way to attack me, in that he would say, you don't like talking about these things. Why don't you like talking about these things? You need to be more open and more go beyond your comfort zones. You like going beyond your comfort zone. So in this regard, you need to go beyond your comfort zone and talk about the jinn. Why don't you like talking about it? Are you afraid? And I would be like, no, I'm not afraid. I just don't feel the need to be obsessed with it. For me, it's like having a pest control issue. You just get some pest control and sort the problem out. You don't keep going on about it all day, every day. And early on in our marriage, he would talk about, for example, his exes, that apparently most of them had mental illness. Surprise, surprise. Oh yes, the trope of my ex is crazy. Yeah, big red flag, run for the hills. And he would be like, yeah, and they also had jinn possession, but you don't have that. As if there was something wrong with me for not having a jinn possession issue. I was like so baffled and confused and just gobsmacked at the fact that this would be a desirable trait in a partner, to have had jinn possession or to be, very, very interested in the subject. So he would often comment to me about how this affected him and how he has a very unique curiosity for the subtle world. And his ex, who was, possessed by a jinn, had a unique understanding for the subtle world that very few women have. And not something that I was interested in having. So he would then go around with, of course, his Raqi friend to many exorcisms or removals from houses that had, entities in it or whatever it was, or people that were affected by this. And he would come to my family, who some of them had an issue in their home with this, or whatever the case may be, and he would go on for lengthy conversations late at night with them about it, to the point where we were actually staying over at families, in the farm 3 hours from Durban. And he would have lengthy conversations about this topic, showing a very, very uncanny propensity towards jinns and the demonic spirits. So he also mentioned that as a young child, he had no one to turn to, no maternal figure. He was insanely neglected, which is very sad. It's heartbreakingly sad and caused me more trauma, because I was trying to be so sympathetic and empathetic towards him and account for all of his misdeeds by, allowances and more allowances because of his troubled childhood. So he said that in his childhood, because of his severe exacerbated neglect and no maternal figure, he would reach his hand out in the dark and receive him, or feel a warm hand receive him, and he would succumb to it. So this makes me think that yes, there is a point in the traumatized child's life where they, if they've been abused or severely neglected, where they actually do succumb to an evil force. They do allow it into their lives. They do allow themselves to be possessed, if not completely, then semi, or from time to time. Or they've made that connection with an otherworldly spirit for comfort of some sort, to succumb to it because of some weakness that they have in themselves that needs to, or a void that needs to be fulfilled or filled. So yes, his uncanny obsession let me feel extremely insecure, because I would feel like there was something wrong with me for not having a propensity towards the unclean spirits, and also that I didn't know how to help him except to take him to people who were already his friend. So this was something that led me down the path of believing that yes, demonic spirit possession does occur during the lifetime of a narcissist, especially during the young, impressionable years, where they're very susceptible to being possessed or embracing this kind of dark assistance. And my ex was testimony to this, and he was unabashed about it. He was actually quite welcoming to it and welcomed any talk of this, and was very into it, and to the point where he said he could feel spirits. You could tell when they were around. Of course, that night I had nightmares, after that lengthy conversation he had with my family, and this led me to feel extremely uncomfortable and in distress around him, because I didn't feel like he could comfort me in that which he was inviting into our marriage, and inviting us toward. It was not clean, it was not halal, it was not wholesome, it was not nourishing. It was something completely destructive and demonic, and this is why I believe that yes, they do have a weakness or a propensity to be possessed. If not always, then sometimes.